until you get that win, until you're like, oh, okay. That's when a lot of people will say, okay, now I get what you're saying about social media. And it's the same thing with this whole morning thing, because I heard so many people talk about their morning routines and like, I'm fasting and then I go here and then I do this. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of work. So it doesn't have to look the same, but I do think there is an element of you have to feel it actually start working. And then it becomes a completely different thing where you're like, I cannot wait to get up and do my X, Y, and Z in the morning. Like that's how I feel when I go to sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do my routine.
Welcome to the House of Germar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of Germar is a lifestyle brand empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of Germar podcast. I'm your host, Jean Collins. And today our guest, everybody, this is going to be so fun. Chelsea Pites, just like lights. I love it. Chelsea is so inspiring. I actually got introduced to Chelsea on Instagram. Imagine. And she is an Instagram guru, guys. She's a social media marketing expert. I've taken her classes. I've learned so much from her. She's also a coach. She was a real estate agent, so she helps realtors. And she's a speaker. So I am so excited that she's given us some time. It is right before the holidays. And thank you, because it's a busy time and it's hard to find the time. So thank you, Chelsea, for joining the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I love talking about all the things wellness, mental health, emotional health, marketing, everything. And all of those are on my favorite list to do. And I'm really happy to be here. So thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you for the time. And I think what's always so funny is, I started following you because you were giving advice on how to be successful on social media, right? And how to create authentic content. And that's when I started following you for that. But you are so real and you share yourself so vulnerably in your stories that all of a sudden I was like, oh, she's kind of into some of this woo-woo stuff too. This is cool.
Yes.
I was like, the universe attracts people to you, not just because you need their help and their services, but also because they're like-minded. And so I got so excited because I was like, wow, you're really into wellness and you've got some really crazy wellness routines that I really love, that you really stick to and I think are really valuable. So I'm so excited to have you on a guest to talk about all of that.
Yeah, I love it. I love the wellness. I love the woo. And we're going to get into all of it.
Me too. Me too. So first, before we do, you didn't wake up when you were 12 and be like, I'm going to become a social media marketing expert and I'm going to share my entire life, which you do. You share your husband, your son, your dogs, like you share it all on Instagram and you're so amazing about how you do it. So how in the world did you get to be where you are?
Yeah, it's a really funny story because I ended up, when I left real estate as a full-time realtor, I left in 2009-ish, which anybody who's listening who might have been in that industry, or maybe you were just in a financial industry of some kind, then you remember that it was quite a crash in our marketplace and our economy. It was not a great time. And so I ended up taking a job where this Fortune 250 company hired me as their marketing director. I had zero experience. And I absolutely said, yes, I can do this and I can do it well. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I kind of love that. I love that they hired me because they hired me for me. And I do that too. Everybody that I've ever hired when I was in a role of hiring people, I always hired them for their energy, their vibe, and, not that they maybe hadn't done it before. And there's something I think really cool about bringing someone on your team who has literally never done the thing in some ways, but is so willing to learn and excited. And this was like 2011. And believe it or not, that was kind of when social media was sort of taking off. Yeah, of course, Facebook had been around before, but there was no stories. There was no video other than YouTube, which was, much smaller than it is now. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I never went to school for marketing. I went to school to become a therapist. And I thought, this is interesting. But you know what? I thought I'll figure it out. That's exactly what I did. And I started using it. And I then started, showing a few people around the office how to do it. And because I was using the tools and creating on these platforms, other people took notice and said, "Hey, can you show me how to do this?" So it turned out for maybe 3 or 4 people coming to a little tiny class that was very casual, that turned into 20, into 100, and it went on from there. So I think the beauty of not knowing anything, and I tell this to people who I know you've written books and will write more. The beauty of doing something for the first time is you have no expectations and you really don't have any idea what you're doing, which is kind of a really beautiful place to be. It's very freeing because once you know all of the quote unquote rules, it becomes a little bit harder, best practices. So I really had no idea what I was doing. I was learning along with everyone and I was sharing it all. And I think that in and of itself was why I was so trusted, because I was telling people I don't have all the answers, but let's figure it out together. And by the way, I'm just going to share it with you. Like, I'm just going to, why would I not share it with you? I mean, you
Right.
could literally go and do this yourself or spend 50 hours Googling videos until your eyes fall out, but why? I'll just share it with you. And so that's how I started. And it just kept going from there. And then I wrote a few books and then I do a lot of speaking on stages. And what I didn't realize is that my quote unquote style of how I teach came from a limiting belief that I had for years growing up, that I had difficulty learning or I learned differently than other people. And I thought there was something wrong with me because everybody else seems to pick this up so easily, but it takes me all these, what I thought was kind of odd and strange ways to learn, ended up making me a really great teacher. And so what I thought was a negative for so many decades ended up being the superpower in how I teach things and pull it apart and see things differently that a lot of people don't see it in. And that allows me to teach with empathy and compassion and help people have these reframes and mindset shifts where they're like, I never really thought about it like that before. So a long journey, very unplanned. And I'm glad that I'm here because I was meant to be a teacher in some form or fashion.
And what a great way to be teaching is to teach like this. Like, I would never even think of it that way. The way you described it as being a teacher and tapping into that skill set, I would never describe you and be like, oh yeah, that's what she does. But it is exactly what you do on a daily basis, is teaching people how to build content, how to interact, how to build trust, how to build connection. You said so many different words, right? How to get over their fears and their limiting beliefs. And then when you speak, it's all about inspiring people to be their true selves and let that shine as their brand. So I love that you mentioned all of those things. You mentioned the word reframe. Have you read the book? This is a total side tangent, folks. Have you read the book, Do the Impossible?
I haven't read that book, and it's so funny as you and I are laughing secretly on the inside because we are obsessed with books. Like, you and I love to read. We've never met a book we didn't like. We love to order and order and order all the books. And I don't know if this is true for you, but I can't go to the library as much because I like to write in my books. I know some people are probably.
Oh, I do. I fold pages. I highlight.
I love to fold a page. I love to mark in it. And so people are like, you should just save some money and go to the library. I'm like, well, they wouldn't be very happy with me. So I love that you brought up that book because I know we're going to talk a lot about books. And I haven't read that one. I may have seen it, but I haven't read that one. So thank you for the recommendation.
You need to read that one. I just finished it. I'm at the very end. And you use the word reframe, which is not a word I have heard a lot. And I read a lot of self-help books, a lot of mindset books, and the word reframe. And the whole book is about framing how you think, and that changing the impossible. The impossible is not impossible. The impossible is just something that a lot of people don't do. But it's not impossible. So it's really fascinating because he talks about how you have mindset, but then outside of it, you have your frame. And if you can change your frame, and he teaches you how to change your frame, and then everything becomes possible. And I feel like I am like a self-help book junkie. I have stacks and stacks of them. And every person who comes on my show recommends books. So of course I buy every book that everybody recommends. So, and many of my people on my show are authors also. So I buy all their books and I read all of their books. And so it's like, I'm just constantly absorbing content
It's a good addiction to have, I think.
It is. Well, and this is a side tangent, but I do want to talk about this because you have the same passion for reading. However,
Mm.
I have a lot of people say to me, I love to read, but I don't have the time. But talk about what you do to make the time, because I think this is a really important routine that you have that allows you to have the time.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you figure out what's going to work for you. When I share my routine, there's going to be some people that literally roll their eyes and say, yep, not for me. And that's okay. And that's okay. It's the journey of figuring out how can you figure out a routine, whether it's even 5 minutes a day, it's before you go to sleep, it's right when you get up, it's when you're in your car, whatever it may be. I'm an early bird. I'm a morning person. I like to start my mornings. That's when my zone of genius is. That's when I like to create. That's when I like to consume. I get all my best ideas in the morning. Very rarely does anything creative happen in my brain after 3 p.m. So I realize that's sort of my time zone. And so what I do is I set my alarm, and this is the part people are just going to be like, wait, what? I set my alarm between 4 and 4:30. Naturally, I wake up around 5:30-ish, okay? So I do generally tend to get up that early on my own, but I set it an hour before I would naturally get up. And then what I do, and still there are days where this is hard, and sometimes I don't do it, but I never ever miss the actual practice I'm going to share with you. So if I don't wake up at 4 and do it, I will do it later in that day. First thing I do before my feet hit the floor is I pop in my earbuds and I will listen to a meditation. It could be something with binaural beats or frequency or different hertz of sound to really tap into that, brain rhythm and waves. It may be some sort of hypnotherapy, but I will listen to that. I will do my meditation prior to getting out of bed. I then will get out of bed, and I'm usually listening to something still in the background. Maybe now it's not a meditation, but it could be some sort of music that's, based on specific hertz for healing or positivity or joy frequency and all of those things.
Yep.
And then I'll usually read. And most of the books that I'm reading right now, I used to read primarily marketing books. And I decided in April of this last year, I'm not really sure what was significant about April, but that was the demarcation in my mind where I was like, I'm not going to read one more book this year unless it's about spirituality, sort of metaphysical, like wellness, all of that. And I got really, really into that. And so, yeah, we're almost to the end of the year and I have not really read any marketing books like I said I would. So that's what I do. And so by the time I'm done with that, sometimes I'll do yoga in the morning. I'm thinking about switching that for 2025 and doing meditation, reading, and then yoga. So I really do devote a good hour and a half to 2 hours just to me and that wellness focus first thing in the morning. And then sometimes, I will also meditate again in the afternoon, kind of like take a break, reset. I really want to be one of those people that does it before I go to sleep, but I'm also one of those people that has no idea when I fall asleep and I'm just out. So I don't know that I could plan that because all of a sudden and she's gone.
And she's gone. You know what? But it means that you're doing something well if you're able to fall asleep so easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I find that, I've been told you should listen to meditation and stuff at night. And, you should listen to your I am affirmations at night and all these different things. And I'm like, it takes me minutes, literally, especially because I learned breath work. And I've been doing breath work since October, taking a breath work class. And so I'm like, I just tap into my breath work and my mantras for meditating and boom, I'm out like a light. And if I read a little bit before that, I found reading a little bit, but I have to read sitting up at night. Otherwise, if I read in bed, it doesn't work. I'm asleep before that happens. And I can't even, that's when I was like, and you might have realized this too, because you made a comment about glasses the other day. It's if I try to read in bed without glasses, all of a sudden I'm like, I really can't see the book.
Oh, look at that. I can actually
right?
see.
It's
every time I put my glasses on, I'm amazed.
It's I really can't see the book. But the point of all this craziness of us sharing our stories is it's about finding what works for you. And I love that you dedicate so much time to that morning routine because I do the same thing. And people be like, so how is it that you don't start work until 10? Because that morning routine is really important. And to your point, if something happens and I have an early morning meeting and I can't get to that routine, I do actually still do it later because I kind of feel like I've missed something. It's sort of like if you forget to brush your teeth, you're like, oh my goodness, I got to go back and brush my teeth.
Right.
It's like you've missed something in that routine.
I think it's kind of similar, and I never thought of it this way. This just popped into my brain. But when I talk a lot about social media, it's almost like you don't really know that social media works per se
Yeah.
until it works, right? So it's very similar where, yeah, you could do this thing and you can get up and do your whole process. But until it really starts to work, like I now know that everything I do, every interview, every coaching call, every on-stage presentation, every content creation day is going to be better when I do that. And
Right.
so now that I 1,000,000% know that,
Yeah.
I get excited to do it. And it's kind of like social media where a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I've done the thing. And I mean, I feel like I've done what you've said and I've heard it before. But until you get that win, until you're like, oh, okay, that's when a lot of people will say, okay, now I get what you're saying about social media. And it's the same thing with this whole morning thing. Cause I heard so many people talk about their morning routines and like, I'm fasting and then I go here and then I do this. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of work. So it doesn't have to look the same, but I do think there is an element of you have to feel it actually start working. And then it
Yeah.
becomes a completely different thing where you're like, I cannot wait to get up and do my X, Y, and Z in the morning. Like that's how I feel when I go to sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do my routine.
Yeah. And I find you might be like this too. I find the more I explore and the more things I do, the more things I like. And so now I'm at this place where I'm like, okay, I could go downstairs and go to the gym and work out for an hour, or I could sit here and keep reading this book. And then maybe I can make it down to the gym later today because I get so entrenched in these books. And so many of them I find so fascinating. Like right now, I'm reading Joe Dispenza and the Supernatural. And I thought I was not going to like that book at all. I thought it was going to be like way too science based, but I'm totally like geeking out on it. And like I want to keep going. And it's actually an easy read. And so I think I find the more I embrace these things and really absorb them and learn from them and try to incorporate them into my life, the more I want them in my life.
Well, I think, what you said is something that I really resonate with because I'm all about, indulging my passions and joys because ultimately for me, it makes everything better. So like you, when I get into a book, I'm like, oh, you know what? I could probably take a break now and I probably should take a break and do this. But I really like this. And I have found that when I really allow myself to do the thing where I'm feeling joy, feeling passion, it really does impact. And this took me a long time. It's not like I was like, oh, you know what? I think I just realized this. It was months and months and months and months of like unlearning of having the to-do list and being okay with saying, you know what? I'm not going to do all those things that I probably quote should be doing today because I don't really want to. And it's not like I'm saying you should just do whatever you want because we all have things that we have to do. But I found that by funneling that energy into this is something that I'm really enjoying right now, it makes everything better. Like all the things that I don't necessarily really want to do end up getting done like they always do. But I feel overall much better, which ultimately helps me eventually get to those things. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm all about like if you're in the zone, stay in the zone for as long as you can.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears for a second because you do so many different things, right? You write, you're a coach, you create content on Instagram. I'm going to even call you an influencer. You speak, you do so many things. How do you decide what to prioritize and what to do? Because they're all incredibly creative. They all kind of fall under the you actually are a teacher, as you said. But how do you prioritize that? And how does that not become overwhelming to you to have your hand in so many different things.
I think you have to be really self-aware. This last 2 years for me was all about building self-awareness and self-trust, which means doing the hard work, which, is why it's so hard because there necessarily isn't really a roadmap, even though there's a million books that you could get. And I have a life coach, like I have tools and I'm investing in tools, right, to help me go through that process. And I think that's number one, step one, even if your coach is a book or even if you're getting an online course or you're listening to a podcast. The first step is that awareness of I want to grow, I want to improve, or whatever your goal is there. And I really just listen to what feels the best for me. And it's so funny because my husband and I are probably very opposite on this. Like he's very like gets things done and very to do and like he's, loves to multitask. Not me. And so the idea of I'm just going to go with whatever my vibe says is not really something he's
Right.
excited by, right? But he knows me now. But I really go with what is fueling me, right? Do I love one-on-one coaching? Do I love, because I love to teach. And, much to my business coach's chagrin, she's like, you should probably charge for that. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'm supposed to be like doing it, like making an income, right? I just love giving. I love giving it away. I love teaching. I love sharing. So I look at what do I like more, not what should I be doing?
Right.
And I don't know if it's an age thing for me, but now that I'm almost 46, like really, I think around 44, 45, I was just like, I truly need to follow what feels right for me. So it's self-trust, which I think, probably is one of the number one things all of us are lacking.
Yes,
And have
of
to
course.
build. And it's really, really, really hard because we all have to kind of do it on our own terms. Like even if we have a coach or a guide. And so I go with what I like the most. I have a lot of boundaries. I only do a certain amount of speaking per year. I have very specific boundaries around out of town, East Coast, like overnights, like how many nights it can only be one night or it has to be an in and out because my primary focus is my family.
Right.
And so I have a lot of boundaries and that has felt really, really empowering to do that. So I just pick and choose which one I like to do the most. And it's the weird thing too that people are like shocked at when I tell them I make content for me first. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, do I enjoy making it? Do I want to talk about it? That's why I post a lot less than other people because I'm just like, I don't really feel like talking about that. So I know you and I are human design fans and I'm a manifestor. Yeah. So I just really have learned how to sort of honor those, pulls, if you will. But I also have to stay within a realm of, oh, yeah, we actually have to get things done. Oh, yeah, we actually have to like do those things. So
we're actually running a business here. Yeah.
In that
There's
world
that.
of, what do I want to do? So yeah, it's, I don't really have any kind of system. I'm like the opposite, like the anti-system kind of a person. I'm an energy vibe frequency kind of gal.
So like you make content when you feel like it's a good day. I have good energy. I know what I want to talk about. I know what I want to do. And then I'm going to go create content.
No, I still force myself to sit down and write ideas like I did yesterday. And you know what? Nothing came out of it that felt like a click for me. Okay. So I am always in the realm of creating and what I want to do. And what I have realized, again, self-awareness. What I have realized is that oftentimes I need to go through this process of starting something, ideating, and eventually something will click. It could be nothing that I ideated and worked on already for the days past. But the act of going through that happens to be my process that eventually leads to this. Right. So no, I do actually on a pretty regular basis throughout the week, we'll sit down and go through my content ideas that I've saved all over the place, not in one nice little neat place. And think about what do I want to do? What do I want to talk about? There's days where I do a lot of research and look at what, things seem to be working. And a lot of times I'm just like, I just don't want to do that. So right. I do have a whole weird process. Like some people go on long runs. My long run is ideating, working with things, putting ideas in, maybe going to Claude, which is a GPT,
Yep.
taking an idea that I have, saying it ugly, putting it in there so that it can kind of, shine it up for me. So I do that almost every day, but until I feel the click, that's when I actually start to create content. I have so much stuff that's sitting in Canva that I started, and I know one day will click for me. And that took me years, as somebody who's a writer. The worst idea I could ever imagine is literally someone giving me a deadline and saying, okay, well, you've got 2 weeks to do this, and we need like 17 chapters.
Right.
Because a lot of it, could I do it? Of course I could. But a lot of it has to be a click for me. And then I'm like, yes, this is, I'm in my zone. I'm in my flow. This is it. And I can't force it. If anybody out there can figure out how to get into the flow, let me know. Cause like, I don't know. Like I do
Right.
usually do a meditation, all of that, but that's just how I work.
And you have to feel it. That's part of being the type of content creator that you are, is you're very authentic. You have to feel it. You write about things and you post about things that are of interest to you and that you are passionate about, and the way you want to explain. It's never like, if you follow your post, and everyone, I'm going to tag it up in here, you guys have to follow you. You explain things so well, and you explain the full thing. It's not like, oh, I'm a content creator, I'm going to give you like a little idea. Here you go. Here's like a dropling of a concept, because there are a lot of creators out there who like do that. And then I'm like, okay, but now what do I do with it? And you actually explain how to do it, what to do, give examples, which is really great.
Say stuff to me that I feel like, I know it's a compliment, but I also feel like it's almost like a lot of content creators could look at it as maybe a negative, but they're like, gosh, you're just giving so much in it. You're giving like this masterclass. And I'm like, I know, I want to. I don't want to just do like the one tip. Yeah. Is that going to get more views? Sure. Because it's less mental space than capacity that we have to process it. But it's just, it's kind of like, I'm not an artist. I don't paint. I don't create music, but I imagine it would be similar to anyone who maybe does do that. Like, it has to feel right for me. And I'm not going to take anyone's advice on how you should paint your landscape or what your sunset, should look like. I'm just going to do like, this is what I want it to look like. And, I think that's a good lesson for anyone doing social media, is if you do know that, and if you do feel like that, and you know what? I'm kind of jealous of the people that are just like, no, I just put whatever out. Like, I would love to have that. But if you're like me and you resonate with that, that's totally fine. And know that it's a choice where I'm making to do something that brings me joy. And honestly, not just joy, makes me so much better at speaking and coaching. It's flushing out of the idea for me. When I am creating a heavy piece of content that has a lot of information in it, it's really me going through the process, knowing it's like me working out, getting ready for the marathon. Do I want to work out and get ready for the marathon? Not really. That does not sound exciting. But I know that once I've gone to the marathon, I'm going to be like, I did that. And I feel really good. And because I went to that marathon, when I want to do the fun, like, 5K, 10K, I'm ready for that because I've already done the marathon. So it's a different frame of perspective of how I'm doing it. And it's not the easy way. Like, it's definitely not the easy way, because you're not going to go viral. You're not going to get a ton of, views and all of the things. But I really believe that reputation precedes reach. And I personally know that when people say, gosh, I have followed you for so many years and I loved all the stuff that you've shared, like, that's what I'm doing it for. That's what I'm doing it for. And I got to remind myself of that, because lately I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what's happening with all of these numbers here? I'm like, wait. Let me remind myself why I'm doing this.
Yeah. So you're like the rest of us, and you have to kind of remind yourself and give yourself a gut check. Because I will say, nothing as a content creator, which I create nothing compared to you, but nothing is worse than me creating a piece of content that I feel really good about. I feel good about the message. I feel good about the learning. I'm like, the video is not bad. I did some CapCut cuts. We've got, a hook. And I'm like, I'm kind of following the rules. And you put it out there and it's like crickets.
I know.
And it's not just, it's hard not to take it personally, because it's not just the production, and you produce these incredible videos that are unbelievable. but I feel like it's the message. And it's like, if you're speaking about something that's important to you and you think has value, and then you don't get anything back, it's like, am I the only one who thinks there's value in that message? And I find it is like, I have to really, really think about, like, it's just because it doesn't resonate with them, or, but that doesn't mean that my message is bad. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a big mental load. It really is, to create something and share it with the world, especially if you're in it. So, because so many people are doing videos, the idea of creating something with you in it, sharing it with the world, and also including your own perspective is really quite vulnerable. It's not as easy. And that's what I would always get frustrated with when I would, go to conferences and listen to podcasts. And, I, of course, love Gary Vee. I started social media because of him. And, he's a kind of a creative genius, but I'm certainly not going to be doing 84 pieces of content a day. I will not do that. And I will never do that. And it's like the idea of just keep going, make more, don't care. It's hard. And maybe it's just because we're sensitive, humans. I don't know. But like I mentioned, I'm having a little bit of that. Oh, I just don't even care. I'm just going to post this out and keep going and put my head down. I could benefit from a bit of that. I am a overthinker. I am a sensitive creative. And so I would benefit from having a bit more of that too, probably in my life. But it's hard. It is hard because it's a very vulnerable place, because we often don't think we have anything to add to the conversation. Our lives are boring. We are boring. Who would want to hear from me? Who am I to say that I'm an expert? So there's a lot of internal conversations that we've probably been having with ourselves since we were very young that often hold us back from this. Or maybe if you're not held back, you judge and you're like, that could have been so much better. Oh my gosh, look at that. Did you see how I looked on that video? That was awful. Who even is that? So I don't know. Everyone's like, just keep going, just keep making more. And that's why I really try to come up with ways for maybe that more sensitive creator to try things, improve, get better, without just ripping the Band-Aid off, which is exactly what I did. And I told, you this when we were coaching, but I didn't watch my videos back for 5 years. Don't recommend that. I would have gotten so much better.
It's an interesting strategy. Yeah.
It's a strategy.
It is a strategy. Not sure it's a good one, but it is a strategy.
I don't recommend that, but I say it transparently because I want people to know that, one, you can try all sorts of ways that aren't mainstream and still have a lot of success. And, there's also, it's scary. People think they see me now and think, oh, you're so like yourself on video. Well, that's not how it started. So it's just, evolution. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Like to be able to watch somebody's evolution. And that's one of the biggest compliments I get is when somebody's been with me for 10, 12 years. And they're like, gosh, I remember when you just had Mason and how that whole thing went. So it's really cool, I think, to watch people evolve and improve and change. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of your love of teaching. All right. So before we run out of time, I'm a huge proponent of environment and how environment motivates, inspires, and contributes to our overall wellness. So we must talk about the environment of your office. How you are the queen. Everyone, you got to go follow her just to check out her outfits and see what she wears. And I mean, you are the queen of embracing color, embracing pattern, going bold. It is amazing. And you really tap into, this is who I am. I like color. I like bold. Yet there are parts of your house, because I've seen parts of your house that are not like this.
The only room. This is the only room.
Like the rest of your house is actually very subdued and pretty calm and a little modern. And so it's really very funny. So talk to us a little bit about your office and how did you decide that all these bright rainbow colors and all of this is what was going to inspire you as a creative, because you're creating content in your office? How did that happen?
Yeah. I realize this has always been me. I look back and, the 12-year-old Chelsea in the 80s, growing up in the 80s. And gosh, everybody remembers Lisa Frank and all of that. And I just have always been drawn to little things, collecting and things that make me happy, and pencils that I would get. Gosh, I loved pencils with all the colorful little things, and I would never use them. And my parents were like, why aren't you ever using these? I go, no, 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 no. They're like my little treasures. And so I love it. You've probably heard that trending audio on TikTok or Instagram. I love a trinket. I love a treasure. That is totally me.
Like, that's me.
I love maximalism. I love collecting. And so, yes, when we moved into this house, I said I need one room. And I will do whatever I want to in that room. And my husband said, great, that's fine. So I've turned, my office into a 12-year-old girl's fantasy, and it's all rainbows and happiness and joy. I call it dopamine decor. I love dopamine dressing. And it's important because it's funny. I always tell people this too. Two things are going to happen. We were talking about personal branding, thinking about who you were when you were a kid, because we all forget about that, right? And then also other people will tell you what your brand is. And somebody said to me years ago, and I don't remember who it was, but they said, when I think of you, I think of the color yellow. And I thought, that is such a beautiful compliment. Oh, like happiness and sunshine. Yes. And so I thought, wow. And so that's kind of when I was like, well, you know what? Yeah. And sort of, I thought about it and embraced it. So that is, I have to have my environment like this. It's my joy. I love being in it. And the importance of literally looking around you and saying, I love it. I love coming in here in the morning. I love being in here. It just brings me so much joy. And yeah, I love little odd creatures, happiness. I mean, I have crustaceans and sweaters and turtlenecks and all kinds of little whimsical, happy things, rainbows. I never met a rainbow and smiley face I don't like.
That is true. Is that tree that you posted, the Christmas tree that you posted, the like multicolor there? You posted that on Instagram. And my first thought was, there is no way your husband is liking that one. And I didn't realize that it was in your office.
It's in my office.
My first thought was, there's just no way a dude is going for that. No way. No way. There's no way your husband likes that. And I'm not even sure your son would like it either.
Yeah, it's funny because when I did parent-teacher conferences this year, I don't know why, but we just decided to do, my husband has an office upstairs and mine's downstairs. And for some reason, we decided to do it in my office instead of his. I don't know why. And every single teacher came on and was like, oh my gosh, is this your son's room? Like, it was like, so they're like, they thought I was in like a playroom or something. Yeah. And I was like, no, it's my office. And they're like, what? They're like, what do you do for work? And it was just the coolest thing. And 100%, every single one of them were like, what do you do for work? Or like, wow, well, where are you? And I thought it was really cool. I'm like, yeah, no, it's just my office. But yeah, this is where everybody wants to come. If they come visit me at the house, they want to see the office and all the things, all the odds and ends that are on the shelves.
And you have a lot of them. You really do. You do. In addition to like this amazing recording studio with lights. And I learned so much from you about lighting and video and how to do all of this. So, all right, before we go, because we're about to run out of time, I love to ask my guests to recommend a book. You and I are book nerds, as we talked about in the beginning, a book that has impacted you personally and professionally that you would really recommend the listeners read.
So this book, and just so everybody knows, I read probably 4 books a month, if that's like the minimum usually. So I read a lot of books. But this one is kind of a bridge between marketing and spirituality, which is kind of hard to come by. So I love this one because at the time, and I believe books find us when we need them. At the time this year, I was really struggling with the idea of creating just to create. And is that good enough, et cetera. And so I purchased Rick Rubin's book, A Creative Act. And man, I was like, okay, this is getting silly now. I've now highlighted every sentence on the page. Like, okay, why do I even have a highlighter, right? It was silly. And so just these little one-liners, these little quotes. It was a quick read. In fact, I think I read it basically in a day. So I was like thinking, wow, this is a really big book. So I love that, especially if you're doing anything where you consider yourself a creative, whether it's in, designing something, whether it's creating or writing a book, music, anything. I just thought it really spoke to me what I needed at the time. And so I like that it was like this crossover. And I think in some ways, that's sort of like what I want in my next book is sort of this like Rick Rubin slash Seth Godin-esque, Brene Brown of social media, if you will, kind of a vibe. So I really liked that book.
Which is a good one. Inserting the woo into the practicality of business, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
All right, Chelsea. So everyone, if you have any interest in learning more about social media, how to produce content on social media, I've taken Chelsea's classes. I've done one-on-one sessions with her. She is truly amazing. And you can learn so much by her different classes. And she offers quite a few of them. So I really highly recommend people follow you. And if you have any interest in learning more, by all means, reach out because you are amazing. And you have such great energy. I love your office and your rainbow colors. And when I think of you, I do think of yellow too. So I had to chuckle as you said that because I love yellow. I really do. I have a sunroom that's yellow and lots of people are telling me to change it, but I love that room being yellow. I don't want it anywhere else, but I love yellow and I love that room in yellow. So I thank you. Your energy is amazing. Thank you for making time right before the holidays. It's a really busy time and I personally screwed up this recording in the beginning. So you were so patient. So thank you so much. And I'm so happy to just share you with my audience and we will stay connected and talk soon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of Germar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of Germar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofgermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofgermar.com. This has been a House of Germar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.